Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. Right over there across from me is Jason Rainwater. Hope you're ready for the nice long holiday weekend. I know that we definitely are.
Yeah.
But we got to get through the rough stuff first before we can go have fun, right? So last week we dissected the Allison Parker shooting, whether it was a real shooting or whether it was fake. It's looking more and more like this is a complete hoax. And I don't know if this lady is dead or alive or what's going on, but last week I looked you guys in the eye through the magic of interwebs, through the magic of
the
radio.
Google machines.
That's right. I looked you guys in the eye, metaphorically speaking, and I said, this guy, her dad, Andy Parker, I'm telling you, he's a crisis actor. Lo and behold, I get home that Friday night, doing some research and everything. Here's what we find. Roll that beautiful bean footage, Maddie. Thank you.
We had an ooh.
There were sounds emanating from the control booth. 2 minutes. Maddie, you've ruined the effect. Anyway, I found the guy. Somebody posted the guy's demo reel, basically.
Yes.
A demo reel of different projects.
We both got home and we were sitting. I don't know what I was watching, and I hear the familiar chime of my Facebook message fire off, and right. I just get this expletive-filled opener from you. I'm like, what's going on? And then you send me the link. And I had literally just finished watching that exact same video.
Did you?
I had just finished. My phone was in my hand. I was ready to send you, and I was like, yep, saw it. And then I was pulling up other videos.
Yeah.
Involving Mr. Andy Parker.
Oh,
yeah. And whatnot. It was so surreal.
It's
so
creepy is what it is. It's creepy when you uncover the fact that they are lying to you.
Yeah. And, most people are like, Wag the Dog. Oh, yeah, that was a really good movie where, like, remember that movie where they faked the war? Right. But if there is such a production company or some sort of thing that's set up where they're like, yeah, we'll create real life issues just like this and use these people, they're signed up. How sick is this world?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's all geared towards getting your guns. And if they're willing to lie to you and come up with these fake shootings, they faked a whole school of kids being shot up. They faked this thing with this woman getting shot. And again, I don't know if she's dead or alive. They had the Celebration of Life festival for her this past week, which really wasn't covered in the mainstream media. I didn't really see much on it. I just saw a YouTube video.
Yeah, but the real news served its purpose. It doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
You notice how quickly the media coverage shut down after it. It was like, this happened, this horrific event took place. We've seen every mainstream media channel, website, news organization beat to death news stories. This was treated like it was given out on a Friday, take out the trash day. We're going to report on a couple days. Done.
It was because it was so sloppy.
It was.
It was so sloppy. It was obvious. I mean, it got uncovered like that. I mean, Chris Hurst, as we covered last week extensively, was tweeting out before the thing began.
Exactly.
And you've got time zone differences. People tried to point out to me this week, well, no, he was on Pacific time, so it was really like 9-something Eastern. But then you look at the Daily Mail report when they filed the report, and no, it's still, they filed the report after he would have been texting, and it just doesn't match up on the timeline. So his Twitter was set to Eastern time. He was tweeting out before she was shot on TV.
Right.
This guy looks like the type of guy who was not excited in high school if he got a chance to peer into the girls' locker room, if you know what I mean.
Right.
He put on his pink pants. He grabbed the photo album. It's like, oh, man, my girlfriend has just been shot. I'm going to grab this photo album and run out and do a bunch of interviews, which is just a bunch of contrived photos set to give you an emotional legacy.
Right.
It's a bunch of bull. And it took like a week for the mother to come out. I saw this story.
And you remember how hesitant we were when we were talking about this, because we were like, we're gonna get into such a gray area. where people are either going to be, they're going to write us off completely, you know, and we were real hesitant. Even when I was speaking about it, I was like, you know, I want to err on the side of what I see.
Sure.
You know, and so we both get home and we see just all this evidence kept piling up. And there's rare that I will stay on one story for very long. I'll research it, learn what I know, what I can about it, give my piece, and move on.
Right.
I caught myself watching video after video, reading article after article, just because I everything was tying in to where I'm like, this is a hoax. I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe that I have to be a person that says this is a hoax.
I know.
'Cause I was like, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't even Andy Parker. Chris Hurst himself was a crisis actor.
Oh, was he? I didn't even know that.
To everything that I've seen, it was based on I don't know if he has. I don't know if he has a reel or anything in that matter. But
the two were recruited to go
Right.
do this exercise. She broke up with a dude, I think in Colorado, and moved to go and I think be a part of this exercise. And she and Chris Hurst were posing as a couple,
right,
and they've created this whole legacy. And now her dirtbag, scummy dad is out there talking about how she's looking down from me and say, "You go, Dad," and it's all fraud. It is an absolute fraud. We can say that definitively. This whole shooting is an absolute hoax. And I'm assuming that she's not really dead. You know, they cremated the body, so there's never going to be that
Right.
evidence that can be found.
Who knows? She might be in Europe somewhere, living the rest of her life.
Exactly. It's like the end of Batman. You
But
know, she's
even
in Europe living.
They were breaking down the video itself too. I was reading articles and they were doing slow motion of the video itself of the actual shooting. You know, and I'm not going to have that put up or anything like that. That's not hearsay. But they were breaking everything down. The way that the gun fired didn't recoil like a weapon that's shooting a projectile at full force does. There was no blood splatter.
Yeah.
There was no, you know, everything, the way he was holding the angle of the gun showcased that it wouldn't, this is not a person who knew how to shoot a weapon. You know, and that doesn't matter for people to shoot a weapon, but to understand the way that you grip a weapon, you have to do it a certain way in order to not hurt yourself in return. You know, they were just breaking it minute. They're like, the way that her body fell back was just not consistent to that type of caliber weapon being fired at somebody. You know, and most people are like, that's morbid. Why would you talk that? That's morbid for you to look at these details. But,
Well, it's forensic
it's like, it is
evidence.
forensic evidence. And like, can you not, there was no ejection of a shell casing.
Right.
That weapon ejects a shell casing every time. It doesn't get just magically stored back into somewhere.
It's not like a video game.
Yeah.
Or, you know, a video game would be more accurate, actually.
It would. You know, so it was like, it's those prop guns that you would get for shoots or whatnot that have CO2 loaded into the cartridge so that you have the effect of a kick.
Right.
But it doesn't, you watch the man's hand, and his hand kind of just did this, like he just pulled it back himself.
Yeah.
You know, you shoot that type of caliber weapon, it jumps your wrist.
It does.
Back, you know,
It
and
does
that didn't happen in the video. And you know, so it's just, and like I said before, I mean, I don't want to be that person who has to dig this deep and to find the truth, but you have to because of all the nonsense we've been reading and seeing on this.
Right. And here's the thing, even if everything that had occurred was true, even if he did really go there, and I just don't buy that he did. I think he's a patsy, Vesterly Flanagan. I think he's a patsy. I think he was tied into the rentboy.com, a shutdown that occurred. I think that somebody got to him through that, and I think he was a patsy, and that's why the BBC camera footage was destroyed when the police officer shot him, so that there would be no evidence of that confrontation. But even if all this stuff was true, it's still a hoax in that the dialogue was immediately shifted to, we got to grab the guns, instead of what really was the cause of this, which was the hate speech coming out of the White House, MSNBC, et cetera, et cetera. After Gabby Giffords got shot, and, you know, we don't know exactly what happened there, but after Gabby Giffords got shot, the first thing out of everybody's mouth was, we got to tone down the rhetoric, guys. Really, there's just so much hatred going on. We got to tone down the rhetoric. and they immediately tried to blame it on right-wing extremism. And it turns out this guy, Jared Loughner, I believe was his name, was a left-wing Satan-worshiping nutbag. So there've been a number of different cases where they try to pin it on the right wing, but it turns out to be some left-wing dirtbag.
I said this last week. They will not go after people that share their ideology at their level. They won't. They have to somehow convert the story away. Do you think they're really going to discuss that the gunman in this particular case was a leftist, racist, who took the word of the Black Lives Matter movement, who took the words of what's come out of the Obama administration to heart, to that he should create civil discord? You think they were going to have that?
They're not going to cover that.
They're not going to cover that. Obviously not because they can't. Because they don't. Because everybody would call it the way it was. Is that President Obama and his administration promote hate speech. They promote race baiting. They promote any way to attack the right wing, no matter who they use as a patsy.
Right.
This is what they guided. This is what they guided the story to. And if they want to sit there and say we're not complacent towards it, you're absolutely complacent towards it because this is exactly what you molded.
This is the continuation of racial division in this country that Obama wants because he actually does want a race war. And that sounds conspiratorial or anything. Think about every brutal dictator that has taken power in world history. They have always taken power during a time of internal chaos, internal strife. There's never been a smooth transition into a brutal dictatorship. It's always been a brutal dictator seizing power. They need that order out of chaos.
Right.
Hitler did the same thing. A massive unemployment in Germany. All the economic conditions that were going on. You had the Bolshevik Revolution. That's how the communists came to power. You had the Red Revolution in China. That's how they came to power. There was a revolution in Cambodia. That's how Pol Pot came to power. Time after time after time, history has shown that these tyrants, these bloodthirsty tyrants, have come to power at a time of great chaos. And that is what Obama is trying to do. He's trying to foment this great chaos so he can stay in power. And I have repeatedly pounded the table on this show and said that he is not leaving office. He's either going to try and get a third term in there, or he's just going to say there's just going to be a crisis, and he's going to say we had to suspend the election. And all the Democrat sheeple will say, he's right, we had to suspend the election because of all the turmoil and everything. He's following the mold that's been laid out through history.
And then they'll use history. They'll be like, well, Roosevelt had a third term. It can happen. We need to have, when we have a good president, we have a great leader, we need to give them extra terms. No, we don't.
No, we don't.
Not at all. The whole purpose of a democracy, the whole purpose of a republic is to keep power in check. And that's limiting people in terms. And I don't understand why people fight against term limits. There should be term limits.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If I had to turn it to that topic.
One last point I wanted to raise before we head off to break here. There's an interview that was printed. Oh, when was this? It's Monday, it looks like. August 31st. Barbara Parker, the so-called mother of Allison, was out there. Oh, by the way, another thing that I found over the weekend, Allison Parker had two Facebook accounts. She had her Allison Parker account and then Allison Bailey account. I was just like, it's just, I can't even. But anyway, they were on there talking about how they got to grab the guns, yada, yada, yada. Andy, every time there's been one of these tragedies, we all say this is the tipping point. Something has got to get done. After Newtown, false flag. Aurora, false flag. Gabby Giffords, left-wing extremism. You think something is going to get done. This time, the circumstances of this tragedy, they are different. Barbara concluded by saying, there are people out there whose minds we will never change. If you are a parent, if you are a mother, if you have children, how can you look at your child in the eye and say we are willing to allow you to be collateral damage in order to keep some people who perceive to be their keep what some people perceive to be their constitutional rights? So she's referring to the Second Amendment.
Right. Yeah, it's because gun owners are the minority in this country.
Yeah, but still, perceived to be their constitutional rights?
Perceived.
It's written in stone almost.
Well, some people need to understand that amendment really doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly. They're coming for the guns, ladies and gentlemen. If they get the guns, it's going to be full-blown tyranny. That's what this is all about. We're going to break. Stay tuned. You're watching Frankly Speaking live here on webcast1live.com. We'll be back in about a couple of minutes.
Real Estate Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
If you choose to obey the power of sin, it leads to death. If you choose to obey obedience, it leads to righteousness.
Forgiveness is just the beginning of life in Christ. God wants us to live for Him now.
And because of Jesus Christ, the gospel was preached, and you and I are blessed today because of Abraham. Did you know that? We're blessed.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I've purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
The only way we come to know the Saviorship of Jesus Christ is by bowing and acknowledging that He is Lord and King over all the earth.
Jesus Christ died on a cross, paid the penalty for our sin, and by repenting of our sin and accepting Him by faith, what He did for us, we are forgiven.
Salvation is not a combination of faith and works. Salvation is by faith alone in God.
Experience Truth, 99.3 FM.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Canyu. That is Jason Rainwater. If you want to join us and party with us here on this Labor Day Eve, you can give us a call, 244-0077, or if you're outside of the Des Moines area.
Why?
You got better places to be, I guess. It's 515-244-0077.
Or maybe
right.
people who live here in the city would like to make comments about how minuscule
I
Des
know
Moines
what you're
is.
talking about. I know what you're talking about.
There you
Oh, you're a traffic jam? Oh, Des Moines. You haven't seen a traffic jam. Yeah, people who have never lived outside of Des Moines. Who
Or like, how far north have you gone? Altoona?
Yeah, exactly. So we know some real gems, all right? Anyway, so I've spent like an hour and 20 minutes over the past 2 shows covering the Allison Parker hoax. There's not much more to say. It's a lie. It's a hoax. It's fraud. Let's move on to the 50 bajillion stories that I didn't cover last week that I should have. I wanted to get onto this story last week, the tit-for-tat moves that China is trading with the U.S., and then it really escalated over this week. We've got 5 Chinese warships creeping up towards the Aleutian Islands, actually 12 nautical miles off the coast of Alaska right now. Where, interestingly enough, Barack Obama happens to be. So there's clearly a message. But if you recall back earlier in August, the huge chemical explosion that occurred in the, what was that district? The Xinjiang? I'll find it.
Xinjiang province or something.
Tianjin, yeah. Tianjin. There was that explosion that occurred. This was, this seems like it was a retaliation. It looked like it was a retaliation on the part of the U.S., and some are saying that it was I don't know if it was a bomb planted. Some are saying that it was a space-based weapon, like one of the rod from gods, the tungsten rods from space. But anyway, this happened immediately after the yuan devaluation that occurred and sent our market spiraling a couple of weeks ago. And then after that, interestingly enough, there was an explosion at an army base in Japan. So like the week after that, this was on August 23rd, there was it was the U.S. military facility in Sagamihara in the Kanagawa prefecture in Japan. So there was a huge explosion there. Afterwards, a few days later, we had another explosion in Tianjin in China. And then Obama goes over to Alaska, and now you got the 5 warships who are breathing down the neck in Alaska. So has World War III actually begun, and we just haven't been told about it?
With war maneuvers and whatnot, it's posturing right now. Until anything further. I don't buy the tungsten rod deal because I've heard that they have much larger circles of damage. That falling from that high, they cause massive earthquakes in that way. So I would probably write that one off. But I work for a bank, and when the market went down because the yuan devalued, a lot of the people that I know were like, yeah, people are panicking, but you look at this as a market correction. The market does a correction. It's going to feel like, oh God, the world's falling out from under us, and then we'll rise back up. Because you remember the Dow fell 400, and then within 3 or 4 days it was back up 800, but then fell again.
Right.
So looking at it on the practicality on the money side, but I think a lot of it's posturing. The thing about like these posturing events is that it tends to happen by proxy attack.
Right.
Like, this chemical explosion or explosion on an air base that doesn't have our personnel, but is within reach, and then the president there up in Alaska talking about climate change by being on a survival show for Discovery.
Yeah.
So he can talk about how glaciers are melting, even though he's taking selfies on the world's largest glacier that's growing.
Yeah.
It's
the largest melting was like between 1960 and
between 18 something and 1899.
Right.
And then from that moment on, it's been growing at a substantial rate. But whatever, I don't want to get into a climate change argument.
Ed Fallon will just magically like pop out the closet.
Yeah,
door.
like,
Did someone say climate change?
You should agree with it. What's happening?
Derpy derp.
Yeah, so it's for me right now. I think it's posturing. I take my 6 years of the Air Force for what it is. I've seen things like this.
It's awful explosive posturing, though.
Well,
and the problem with explosive posturing is that things can get out of hand.
But, I've been in Korea and I've seen North Korea come shoot artillery shells across the border. It may not be at the same explosive rate, but it happens. I would like to say that right now it's tit for tat until we understand what's going on.
Right.
I wouldn't exactly call it World War III. I would say
might be the overture.
Some heightened levels that we're probably going to be seeing, and I wouldn't be surprised if our troops that are overseas right now are on a DEFCON level.
Actually, I had a story printed out that U.S. troops in the Middle East were told to refamiliarize themselves with their chemical warfare suits and those procedures.
Right.
That was just today through Fox News. So.
Which, by the way, personally having gone through that is one of the most god-awful experiences.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just a quick personal story. I'm in Bahrain. If you don't know where Bahrain is, it's a little island 45 minutes off of Saudi Arabia. It's connected by a bridge. It's where all the Saudis go to party. So because Allah doesn't see anything other than what's in Saudi Arabia.
Allah can't see Bahrain.
That's the whole reasoning. And so every 3 weeks we had to do chemical warfare exercise. We got into full chem gear and we spent 4 to 8 hours in chem gear working as we are. Mind you, it's 135 degrees. I'm in a full chem gear suit, which is on top of my BDUs is a charcoal encased jacket, charcoal encased leggings, full gas mask, hood over the top of the head, full gloves on that are on. You drink through a little stem in your gas mask that kind of, once the water goes through, it tastes like you're just drinking straight out of a Goodyear tire.
Right.
And you were just dying of sweat, absolutely dying. It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had, because once you take that stuff off, you just feel like you lost 20 pounds in water weight. But the thing about chem gear with this is that it slows chemical exposure. Doesn't stop it.
Doesn't stop it. It just slows
it. Doesn't stop it. And for a lot of the people, they're like, "Oh, this is going to protect you." No, it's going to limit your exposure, but you're pretty anyway.
Now, when it was 135 degrees, was this prior to the climate having changed?
Oh, yeah, absolutely prior to the climate change.
Yeah.
Did you know there was a comfortable 82 degrees back in the day?
Exactly.
Yeah,
The desert was a great place to hang out.
I've been to Iraq. It's been where there was lollipop dreams and gumdrop unions.
And then the climate changed, and the sun got it everywhere.
And everything went away. Matt Damon.
Oh, that's a good movie to watch over the July 4th weekend. Anyway, getting back. China, the U.S. is developing sanctions against China now over cyber thefts. This just came out, I believe, yesterday.
See, that's what I would be more worried about.
Right.
China's cyber attacks do far more damage than any type of explosion that happens on a base in Japan, given China and Japan's history as it is. But China is the tops at cyber attacks. Right.
The government has not yet decided whether to issue these sanctions, but a final call is expected soon. So maybe this warship, the 5 warships that were off the coast of Alaska, that's got to be a warning. Yeah. You know what's funny? If you remember back, I don't remember if it was 2010 or 2011. Remember when Obama was going to, was it Indonesia or maybe it was India?
Yeah.
I remember there was all that flack about how much gear he was taking. He was taking like portable bomb-proof tunnels with him. There were a number of warships that were going to be parked off the coast. He was basically taking an armada, and he was taking like all this command and control stuff. And everyone's like, "What the heck is he doing?" I mean, that's just a ridiculous amount of gear. It's like, is this the emperor? Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the specifics about what the debate was between China and the U.S. at that point. But I looked at it and I was like, this is the actions of a guy who's afraid of something. This guy is worried that we're going to get hit. Mm-hmm. He's taking everything he can with him just in case. And lo and behold, while he was out there, remember that's when you had that mysterious contrail?
Yes.
That was shooting straight up. And everyone's like, that's a missile. That's a missile. That's a missile. And it took like 2 days for the Air Force to say, "Oh, no, that was not a missile. That was a contrail. That was from a passenger plane." Meanwhile, they don't ever actually show radar images or anything of the plane. I bet if we did a Freedom of Information Act request, we'd find that there was no plane in the vicinity, like they said. But it was so ludicrous that they were saying it was an airplane that even reporters who normally regurgitate this stuff without any blink of an eye whatsoever were visibly laughing online. Even on CBS, they were laughing about this, that it was so audacious that the military was saying that it was an actual contrail and that it was an optical illusion that was shooting up when it was shot from the video that was airing on the news was shot from a helicopter. It was clearly something shooting up. This was actually a Chinese submarine that popped up undetected off of the coast of Catalina Island, off of California. They popped up. They said, "Hey, how's it going?" Shot an ICBM up in the air, so it was going northwest, so it wasn't going to hit anything. But that was the message that they sent. And that was what Obama was afraid of. He thought that they actually were going to nuke the mainland. So I think that this is another message, maybe not quite as extreme as that, but and that's a true story. This actually happened in like 2010, 2011.
Right.
So I think that might be.
It's funny because you said
here.
Catalina because they used the coverage of Edwards Air Force Base.
Oh yeah,
as a reason.
Well, here's some other weird stuff that's going on as well. There was a sudden drill that was announced that's going to be taking place on the East Coast during the month of September.
It always happens.
ADS-B surveillance and some TCAS operations in the airspace over Virginia, North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida might become unreliable as of September 2nd at 1 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, according to a NOTAM the FAA issued on September 1st. The outages are due to events the agency labeled as late notice from the Department of Defense of military exercises. NBAA voiced its concern to the FAA that these sort of significant impact tests need much more notice to operators in the national airspace system. The outages are scheduled to last until midnight October 1st. In addition to the areas of concern noted in domestic airspace, the FAA said the outages might well extend up to 200 nautical miles offshore, where there happens to be a Russian sub or a Russian ship in the Atlantic near nuclear submarine areas. This was by Bill Gertz just yesterday. U.S. intelligence ships, aircraft, and satellites are closely watching a Russian military vessel in the Atlantic that has been sailing near a U.S. nuclear missile submarine base and underwater transit routes, according to Pentagon officials. So this is near Kings Bay, Georgia. So we got the Russians on the East Coast, and suddenly our air support radar is going down intermittently for a month. You got the Chinese on the West Coast. What's going on? It sure feels like they're...
It's an extreme posturing.
It feels like we're leaving the back door and the front door open, so to speak.
Oh, sure.
Anyway,
anything to create some domestic, discord around here.
We're coming up against break number 2. Stay tuned. This is Frankly Speaking Live, and you're here on webcast1live.com. Don't go away. We got a lot more to cover. We'll try and get through as much of it as possible. Meet us back here in about a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed raters free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still a fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing. We have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. This is Jason Rainwater.
Yes, it is.
You can join us by calling us at 515-244-0077. Again, that's 515-244-0077. We're talking about Chinese on the West Coast, Russians on the East.
It's not a David Lee Roth song either.
We're talking about a drill that was suddenly announced September 1st that's going to take down radar eyes, basically, over 5 states in the southeast. There was an alert that was put out in regard to that on Steve Quayle's website, saying there was heavy activity on Russian VLF comm channel. The movement involves a large signal intelligence spy vessel of the Russians that has been tracked going up and down the East Coast and in the Caribbean. So that must be the vessel that's on the East Coast. And a whole task force of Chinese sailing now already getting close to Alaska. Then last night, a statement by the Russian military that they are preparing an answer to the U.S. sanctions, and it will not like them, but something to make the U.S. wish it had not done them. China does blame the U.S. for the 3 big explosions and also does not like the threat of sanctions either for the cyber stuff. So the bear and the dragon are both very angry and may just decide to do something about it all. Maybe starting in Syria, where it came out that Russia is now going to go after ISIS in Syria.
Right.
And of course, ISIS is our proxy, our creative proxy. So basically, they're going to fight our goon squad.
Yeah, and if you want the definition of what our World War III is going to look like, it's going to be this way. It's going to be proxy wars. It's going to be very... I'm going to throw a video game in reference for you. It's going to be very Metal Gear Solid. We're going to have proxy armies that are not exactly always going to be countries' armies.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be
private military corporations.
Yes. This is
best
oh my god,
David Hayter Solid Snake impersonation.
Here's the worst thing with me saying it's like it's going to be corporations. I'm sorry, I didn't want to sound like a terrible progressive,
a Bernie tard,
the libtards that are out there. But it's going to be that way.
No, I agree.
That's how this war is going to be fought, and it might not touch home because I think China, Russia, and the United States, all on their own, are going to create their own war at home.
I think it might touch home. I don't think that we're going to escape the Third World War.
I don't think it's going to be China and Russia that attack us. I think it's going to be us who attacks us.
Well, that could be too.
You know what I mean? Because
but China and Russia might just be ticked off enough through all of our meddling. Mm-hmm. Think of how much we have screwed up the world since we attacked ourselves on September 11th. Everything that has occurred, we have used the mantle of September 11th, which everyone knows, except for the people in the U.S. The entire world understands that this was a false flag attack, except for the idiots walking around here in America who are kept dumb by the mainstream prostitute government-controlled media. But I think that we may come to a point where the rest of the world says enough is enough and takes us out. I don't know, but this alert ends with him saying about it all, maybe starting in Syria and then being in position for a retaliatory strike near the U.S. mainland. So I don't know. We're living in some perilous times.
Tell them to bomb Louisiana.
Why that?
I don't know. Nobody wants that state.
Really?
Looks like a big piece of concrete to me, so I don't.
I've never had the pleasure of going down to Louisiana, so I wouldn't. Anyway, so yeah, we may. I don't know. We may. Oh, and then Putin was actually. This was on Russia Today. Today, Putin was out saying that
he's virile. He is Putin.
He is. He's saying that that they need to fight ISIS in Syria. They need to fight it. They need to go after it at its core. Is the big takeaway that I had on that. So what's the core of ISIS? Well, we trained ISIS. We funded ISIS. Oh, yeah. That's what Benghazi was all about. That's what the Hillary Clinton email scandal is all about, is protecting those emails in regards to setting up ISIS and funneling weapons over to that organization. So if you're going to fight the core, that means you're going to fight us.
Yeah.
It's coming, guys. It's coming. It's on the doorstep already. Anyway, let's switch gears a little bit. Earlier this week, Kentucky clerk Kim Davis was put in jail for refusing to issue a same-sex marriage license in her county in Kentucky. A judge jails Kim Davis for refusing that, which I think is total overkill. This judge was an activist judge, absolutely. Right. Federal judge who previously has sided with arguments for partial birth abortion and homosexual clubs in public schools, ordered jail on Thursday for a Kentucky county clerk who refused to violate her faith and issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. Judge David Benning said fines were not enough punishment for the Christian clerk. Everyone is stunned at this development, said Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, which has been representing her. Kim Davis is being treated as a criminal because she cannot violate her conscience. While she may be behind bars now, Kim Davis is a free woman. Her conscience remains unshackled.
Oh, by the way, Kim Davis is a Democrat.
Is she a Democrat? I did not know
Democrat.
that. That is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Which I made comment to an individual, and they gave me the typical progressive response. Well, she's a Southern Democrat. They only vote Democrat because that's what their parents were. I'm like, okay.
Well, why doesn't she have a crisis of conscience for that?
I'm like, okay.
Bunning, a professing Roman Catholic, said, "Our system of justice requires citizens, and significantly, and ironically, he states, significantly elected officials to follow the rules of the courts." What does he have to say about Hillary Clinton, I wonder? The judge not only refused to provide what her attorneys described as due process for her and protection for her First Amendment religious rights, he also rejected a request from Kentucky Senate President Robert Stavers of Manchester to delay, withhold, or temper his ruling until the General Assembly has an opportunity to establish new frameworks under Kentucky law.
Yeah, but if he keeps her in prison, I mean, he can somehow rehabilitate her train of thought.
This is about sending a message.
It really is.
Well, here's the deal. Do you agree with her actions of refusing to issue those marriage license?
I've told you in my position about the state being involved in marriage
right
all the time. You know, for me, I don't care. I don't want state involved in marriage. Not gay, not straight, not what have you. It's not something that they should be governing. It's not their role. Now, do I personally agree with her? Here's the thing. I can see it both ways. My problem is the way I see it from a progressive side is that this is a target now. We can poke fun at her, make fun of her, show how screwed up her life is, and we can show you how ignorant the typical right-wing thinker, let's completely bypass that she voted left her entire life, that she's in that party. I'm like, she's in your party.
That's very interesting. I'll have to look that up. I'd like to find that.
She's a registered
I'd like to verify
Democrat.
that.
It's to be able to put a face on something, and Kim Davis is the face where they can go and say, oh, look at her. I've been seeing memes after meme about her. Be like, oh, she was married 3 times and she had children out of wedlock. Okay, so?
Yeah.
I don't care.
She's only been a professing Christian for a year is when she got saved.
I'm like, okay. Why does that make her opinion any less? Because you don't agree with how her stance is? Like, you don't agree that she lived out of wedlock? That doesn't make sense. Not with your platform.
So they want to be all sanctimonious when it suits
it's sanctimonious when it suits them. And you get all these people out there that go, the state shouldn't have a church get involved because it's there was a congressman who said, I put my hand on the Bible and swore to defend the Constitution. I didn't put my hand on the Constitution and swear to defend the Bible. And I go, then what are you trying to? What are you expressing to me? That you don't like that she wouldn't issue a marriage license, or by the fact that you don't want religion? Like, that's the way your statements go.
And I think that's what the meta game is about the whole gay movement. It's about criminalizing.
It is
eventually criminalizing Christianity, and I know that's not what it is for like our friends who are gay
I would say,
and who are married.
Yes.
That's not what it is for them.
No.
For them, it's just they want to live their life.
Exactly. I would say the majority, and maybe I'm generalizing, maybe I'm not right, but the majority of people that we know, and I would assume would be the same thinking, do not care other than saying their opinion. Oh, I don't agree with what she was doing. Life moves on. It's that 10, 15% minority that comes in and want to criminalize anything that's out of their train of thought.
That's what the end game is. And Mike Huckabee actually hit it on the head, saying that it removes all doubt about the criminalization of Christianity in this country, and we must defend. I don't agree with her for refusing to do basically what is her job. I think the state of Kentucky should have fired her.
Yes.
If that's what it came to. If she didn't like it, she should have quit. That's just the nature of the game. However, to throw her in jail, that is religious persecution.
And, it wasn't...
And that makes Kim Davis a political prisoner.
And it wasn't state police that threw her in jail. It was federal police.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There it is.
She was under federal authority, not state authority.
The United States has become the #1 shipper of filth throughout the world. Anyway, we're coming up on our final break here. We're going to try and hit the lightning round and hit a bunch of miscellaneous stories that I didn't get a chance to. So stay tuned. Frankly Speaking Live, webcast1live.com. Back in a couple minutes.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
All right, welcome back to Frankly Speaking Live here on webcast1live.com. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That is Jason Rainwater. We've been trying to cover a little bit wider range of issues today. Wanted to hit some police state news real quickly here. This story came across this story came across just today, actually. The audacity of this is stunning. Texas sheriff says you have to obey the police because their authority comes from God. Where have we heard this before? A Texas sheriff recently lashed out at critics, saying that citizens have a moral obligation to obey the police because their authority comes from God. I bet listeners of this show know where this is going. It's going to be a perversion of Romans 13. Let's take a look and see. Meeks recently published a guest editorial in the local Herald Banner. In it, he cited Bible verses that he claims argue that anyone the government puts in charge of you must be obeyed. The article was run in print only, but photographed by our friend. Check out these images below. I'm omitting the friend's name. So he says, when I first became sheriff in 2009, I told my wife that I know that I am not going to please everyone, but that I am going to do my best job, yada, yada, yada. Let's see. Guess where that authority comes from to law enforcement? It comes from God. Read Romans 13:1 in the Bible. And while you're at it, you folks in Ferguson, Baltimore, Arlington, and here, take a gander at Romans 13:2 while you're at it. So he uses Hitler's favorite perversions of Romans 13 to claim that police brutality or police authority comes from God Almighty. Meeks decided that now is the time to break his silence on the role of police in the community. He said, due to recent events, I can no longer be silent concerning what our country allows. It is amazing to me that the criminals who break into our homes and steal from us, those who sell drugs to our children, those who abuse innocent and defenseless children, those who rape our wives and daughters, those who commit cold-blooded murders, all are innocent until proven guilty. No, you jackwipe, it's not innocent until proven guilty. It's presumed innocent until proven guilty. Their innocence is not codified by that statement. They're saying that we give them the benefit of the doubt, and it is up to the justice system to prove their guilt and that we must presume them innocent. But you can't even get that little thing right. You omit that word, presumed innocent until proven guilty. So how can we take anything that you say about Romans 13 seriously? Meeks asked rhetorically, what has our country come to? When will we wake up to the fact that a country established under God is now a godless nation? I agree with him on that. People evidently don't want law and order. They want to kill, threaten, and to harm the very offices who are in place to protect them. People do want law and order. They're just sick of these cops who go out there and abuse the public. Why don't your police officers follow law and order? Here's a story about cops getting caught on video punching a pregnant woman over and over, punching her in the stomach. I see stories about just today, a guy who was a little bit off his rocker running into a police station. Police choke him out and kill him in the police station. Turns out the guy was just high and just asking for help, but that doesn't matter to the cops. They kill him. I see stories about people putting their hands up, trying to surrender to the cops. The cops shoot them anyway. I've seen video of a fat woman police officer shooting a homeless guy. I've seen other homeless guys killed. It doesn't matter if these guys are black and white. Why don't you cops follow the law? But the problem is that you police have been trained into an us versus them mentality. You police have been militarized because of a phony war on drugs that has been perpetrated on us into thinking that we're all enemies and that we all deserved to have our rights violated anytime we're turned over. Here's another story. Local police institute no refusal blood draws until the end of summer. In Austin, Texas, the police department has announced the implementation of a no-refusal policy until the end of summer by which officers can forcibly extract blood samples and breath tests from drivers without consent. You damn vampires! Vampires on the side of the road! And you're telling us that we want a lawless society. No, we just want our peace officers to actually follow the Constitution. And yet we're demonized if we ever bring up the Constitution, like that sheriff up in Washington State who's photographed standing on the Gadsden flag. Oh my gosh, it's just the hypocrisy. So, if you want a better society, then you got to train your police to follow the law. What do you got to say, Jason? I'm ranting.
Peace officers. They were
Yeah.
called peace officers.
I wish
That
we
was
could-
their job. It was to ensure the peace. It was, and then all of a sudden we transform it into what's called law enforcement.
Law enforcement.
They are to enforce the laws. I mean, you
Right.
look at the side of like their vehicles, like they're like to protect and to serve.
Yeah. You're
No.
not law enforcement.
No,
the courts are the enforcers of the law.
Yes.
You're not law enforcement, though.
You're established to maintain the peace. Now, that doesn't mean you're established to be totalitarianistic.
Right.
In your enforcement of that peace, which is what a lot of things are coming into, because it falls into where we have, unfortunately, this crime against police officers, where people they're being shot. But the answer to that is not to over-militarize yourself, not to give you broad powers beyond what is written in the Constitution, beyond what's written in state law for you. All of this leads. What's funny about this sheriff that you speak to in Texas? This is exactly what like the Japanese Stop Police were set up for. This is exactly what the German SS was set up for.
Yep.
Even here during Roosevelt's time, when internment camps happened, they rounded up Japanese individuals. That wasn't local law enforcement. It was this, other militarized force that came in and took them. So they sit there and say, well, like you said, it's an us versus them mentality. And he can't understand. He's like, why can't the public understand that they need to follow what we say? Because we're from God.
Yeah.
We're from God. You're not
Basically,
God-fearing people.
What they're
We
trying
are.
to say is that they're God.
Yeah.
That's what they're trying to say.
And it's funny, there's peace. Like I said, there's peace officers. Why does Fish and Wildlife have to be armed?
They
Why
don't.
do
They
park
don't.
rangers
it's a part
need
of
to
the
be armed?
militarization of the police.
And everyone looks. You watch the shows like I might be taking this off.
Because there's Al Qaeda around around
Right.
every corner.
And I might be taking this off the rails a bit, but you can watch these channels like Animal Planet, and they follow like the wild, fish and game
Oh, yeah. I can't
all
watch
over the
those
place. And I'm like, why are those people armed? Why do you need a firearm? And they put them in these situations like, well, we have to go after these people who are poaching fish. Okay,
ridiculous.
but you need to be completely armed with an AR-15 sitting in your Ford Explorer? You don't even have arresting power. It's
But they got the power of life over death. That's what it boils down to.
Absolutely. And the thing that inflames it further is that they are one of the many, many reasons why a lot of what's happening in the past 10 days has occurred. Mm-hmm. They can't sit back and pretend that they're the innocent bystander. Like,
right.
it wasn't.
But at the same time, they push all this, and then cops get shot, and I don't want to see cops get shot.
No.
But then that helps codify support for the police, and then turns it into this situation where you've got those who are lawless against our boys in blue.
Exactly, and we've said before,
it's a Republican-Democrat issue. That's what they try to turn it into.
And we've said before, people who've gone into law enforcement, as we'll use the word for it, we know them to be good, decent, law-abiding people themselves. But the problem is that the majority that goes into these are twisted and warped in their training. Mm-hmm. They're taught to kill first before
anything.
anything.
With no hesitation.
No
targets,
hesitation. No hesitation. Targets.
Women with holding babies and a gun. Mm-hmm. So they're training you. They're training them to shoot pregnant women.
And we have said, in fact, you've had to have a little bit of a mental disorder to want to become a police officer in this day and age.
Okay, real quick. This was from last week. Department of Defense manual allows journalists to be held as belligerents. New Defense Department guidelines allow commanders to punish journalists and treat them as unprivileged belligerents if they believe journalists are sympathizing or cooperating with the enemy. Well, who is this enemy? And the enemy is going to end up being people who want to defend our civil rights.
What's funny about this is that the military's been censoring media in every war or police action we ever been a part of. They'd have to make it even more that now they're going to treat them as criminals?
Yeah. It's an attack on the First Amendment. In general, journalists are civilians, the 1,180-page manual that was released says, but it adds that journalists may be members of the armed forces, persons authorized to accompany the armed forces, or unprivileged belligerents. So it's saying that if they don't have permission from the military, then they're a belligerent. That's a direct attack on free speech. It's a direct attack on the First Amendment. A person deemed unprivileged belligerent is not entitled to the rights afforded by the Geneva Convention. So I guess that they can be tortured, they can be shot on sight.
Oh, yeah.
So a commander could restrict from certain coverage areas or even hold indefinitely without charges any reporter considered an unprivileged belligerent. And that's going to be whatever they declare unprivileged belligerent. Remember Dianne Feinstein, how she wanted to license journalists?
Yeah, the Duchess was always pushing for that stuff because she got tired of negative media towards her.
Defense Department officials said that the reference to unprivileged belligerents was intended to point out that terrorists or spies could be masquerading as reporters or warn against someone who works for jihadist websites or other publications, such as Al-Qaeda's Inspire magazine, which is run by the CIA, that can be used to encourage or recruit militants. So they always use that specter of, we gotta watch out for terrorism. When the terrorists are created by us, they're funded by us, and then it's meant to turn the dial basically so that it's turned on us.
Yes.
And attacks free speech and our rights. Anyway, that's about all the time that we have for Frankly Speaking. Look at all the articles that I didn't get to. A bunch, actually. We'll try and hit that.
I hope they all feel enlightened.
We'll try and hit that up next week. That's it for Frankly Speaking Live. I'm Dave Kanyuk. That's Jason Rainwater. Stay tuned. About 30 minutes, Wayne Carter will come and lay some smackdown on you. Stay tuned. You're watching Frankly Speaking Live.